Okay, so we can start with our relaxing one. We can slide forward in the chair, relax the back, relax the hips, make sure they're opening up. Try not to move your shoulders forward, make sure the neck is comfortable, and we can close our eyes and just have a couple of breaths here. Okay, we can open our eyes and return to upright position. Start with our pelvic tilt. Let's sit a little bit forward in the chair so that you can put some weight on the feet. And we'll start with our pelvic tilts. First, a really small movement. Tuck the tailbone under. Roll your hips back like this. It will round your back. And then do the opposite move. Stick your tailbone out and it will tilt the pelvis forward and this will arch your back. So start with small movements, see how things feel today. Feel your pelvis rolling back and forth and notice we're not doing it with the shoulders. So hips are moving, shoulders are not. Well, they will move a little bit, but we start the movement with the hips. And let's observe what muscles do we use. To tuck the tailbone under, you will feel you have to tighten the abdominals and your back muscles relax and your back can round. To tilt the pelvis forward, you have to tighten your back muscles, especially these in the lower back and your stomach muscles. Relax. And we can also synchronize it with breathing. We can exhale on this and inhale on that. Now let's give it a name. So you can pretend your pelvis is actually full, and when you tilt it like this, the water would flow to the back. So we call it backward tilt or posterior tilt. If you stick your tail out, water would flow to the front, and we call it a forward tilt or anterior tilt. So now we know which one is which. Let's do a few more and make them smaller and smaller because we will be looking for something that is right in between, where the water doesn't spill to the front or to the back, which means we will even out tension in the abdominals and in the lower back muscles. So our pelvic bowl will be vertical as we can have it. And if you move side to side, you will feel your sitting bones pushing into the chair and you will not feel your tailbone. This will be our neutral pelvis. We will just put the shoulders directly over the hips, not to the front, not to the back, and this will make sure the back is in a good alignment. Now we just need to roll the shoulders back, keep this vertical position of the spine, and let's get busy with neck and head. Instead of them hanging forward, let's use muscles in the back of the neck to push the head and neck back. So your head ends up over the shoulders rather than hanging forward. And this movement is different from just lifting your chin up. Nothing moves up, everything moves back. So this is not an extension, this is a translation. Do a couple, and if you have troubles, you can gently guide your chin. Don't really push hard, but just put a little bit of pressure through your finger to show which way to go, to the back, not up. And now let's do one more and check if we did a good job. So let's pretend we're looking straight ahead to the horizon and measure the space between chin and chest. And if it's about the fist, it's a good alignment. If we didn't do a good job, in order to look forward, we'll have to lift the chin up and the space will be way bigger than the fist. So this is us sitting upright. From here, we'll do a couple of neck stretches. I'm going to turn a little bit so you can see. First one is flexion extension. So now we will actually move the chin down. Roll the head on the neck. It's a joint. Head can move on the neck. And neck itself, of course, is flexible. We will round everything forward until stretching the back of the neck, maybe the upper back too. And this is flexion, forward flexion. Now we will look forward and keep moving the chin up. Now we do lift the chin up toward the ceiling, just don't go too far. Once you feel a mild stretch in the front of your neck, we'll repeat the whole cycle. Head on the neck, round mounting the whole neck forward, looking down at our feet, having a breath or two, and then start rolling it up, looking forward. Make sure your shoulders stay back and down the whole time, and be careful not to go back too far. And let's do the whole thing one more time. Back of the neck, back of the neck, and now we can bring everything forward and make sure we're back to our upright posture. Next movement, let's just look around. We will open the shoulders, maintaining our vertical position. Make sure your pelvis is where we put it, and start looking around. Start with a small movement. Let's not push too hard. And let's make sure we're not overdoing it. So when you turn, let's say to your left side, you should feel the stretch on your right. And vice versa, when you go to your right side, you should feel the stretch on your left, on the long side, stretching side. If you feel something on your short side, it means that your joints are not happy. And you're overdoing it a little bit. So this is rotation. Let's also explore side bending. We will retest our posture. Let's hold the chair so that the shoulders are not coming up. And we will simply move ear toward the shoulder. And again, you should feel the stretch on the long side and no discomfort on the short side. And we'll start with small movements, see how everything is. And then as we go back, it might feel a little easier. Always make sure we feel a nice mild stretch in the neck and maybe in the shoulder too, because we're keeping the hands under the chair so the stretch may go. Make sure you don't have shooting pain down the arms, as this will be a sign of a nerve pain. So always make sure that you feel things in the right places and the sensation is pleasant. So that was side bending. Now let's give our back a break. We will get back to neck stretches. I will turn so you can see there. Let's move the feet a little forward, but keep the knees bent. We'll take it to a back stretch. We'll have a big breath. First, we arch the back, and then exhale, tuck the tailbone, and also take the arms forward, look down. That's a back stretch, and then we'll straighten up. Move the arms out, and slide the hands, and slowly come into a forward bend. First, move your hips, and then you can relax your back, and take it to wherever you feel a nice stretch. Moving mostly in the lower back. You can have a couple of breaths. On every inhalation, you'll feel a little bit more stretch. And when you're ready to pick up, you can put your hands on the knees and keep your back relaxed for now. Start straightening the hips and then straighten the rest of the back and draw the shoulders back. We will do it again. Let's go back to our neck stretches. So now we will do a combination of moves. We'll start with our good posture. Let's find the pelvis. First, we will look down. And then slowly rotate the neck to the side. And lift the chin a little bit like you want to look over your shoulder. And once you feel the stretch through here, let's go forward again. So we're avoiding too much of extension, especially combined with side bending and rotation. So if that makes you dizzy, you can skip this whole part because sometimes it can happen. You extend your neck too far, start looking back, and blood vessels and nerves can get constricted. So be careful with that. That's why we want to move slowly so we feel what's going on before we take it too far. Okay, and we can go back to our good posture. Let's do another forward stretch, just like we did. You may want to take your feet a little more forward, but knees are still soft. We'll take a deep breath again. Arch the back, round the back. Exhale. You can look down, and then we take another deep breath. Circle down so you can keep your elbows straight, bend the wrists, and stretch the palms. And then we start moving the hips first, sliding down, And if it's okay with you, you can drop the head, or if it gives you unpleasant pressure in your sinuses, obviously you don't need to drop your head down. And let's come up exactly the same way. Hands on the knees, let's start moving the hips first, and then straighten the back and return to our upright position. Check the pelvis, shoulders over the hips. We're ready for another round of neck stretches. Let's move a little bit. Grab the chair so the shoulder stays down. Maybe lean just a bit. Start feeling the shoulder, and then slowly add a neck stretch. Again, you should feel stretching your neck. No pain down the arm, as this will be a sign of some nerve problem. From here, we'll lift the chin up a little bit, slowly and gently, just to put some stretch through here. Again, not too much. And now let's move the chin down, looking at this knee. And the stretch will move toward the back, that area between shoulder blade and neck. Give that a couple of breaths. Next thing, keep looking down, but add rotation, trying to look at the opposite shoulder. And you still will feel it on the side of the neck and more toward the back. And from here, very slightly, you can try and lift the chin up and stop when you move the stretch into the front of the neck. And let's come out of the stretch slowly. It's a big stretch. Move your fingers, reset your posture. Let's go to the other side. Holding onto the chair, very slightly. Start feeling a bit of stretch in the shoulder, side bend. From here, we'll add a little bit of this, looking up at this corner of the room, and the stretch moves to this part of the neck. Be gentle with that, and then move your chin in. So now we're still side bend, but we're trying to look at this knee, and you'll feel the stretch moving toward the back. And then keep looking down, but add a rotation. So now we're looking at this shoulder, and it's also side of the neck and more toward the back, area between shoulder blade and neck. And just a very small chin lift again. And stop when you start feeling the stretch in the front part of the neck on the side. And then we can straighten up, let go of the chair, move your fingers, move your shoulders. We're done with neck stretches. Next one, we'll start stretching back of the hip and inner thighs. Straddling the chair, we can start with knees bent. Good posture, we'll be sitting upright. And let's move our hips forward with a straight back. And first, you'll feel your inner thighs and hamstrings. You can stop right here. If you want to stretch your back too, you can relax. Now again, if you don't mind, get head down and have a couple of breaths here. It will be also stretching your back. To come up, let's do something different here. Press the hands into the floor, lift the chest, put the hands on the chair, straighten up. So we came up, unfolding rather than unrolling. Let's repeat. Depending on the chair, you might be able to take your feet a little more forward. Do the same thing, tilt the hips forward. If you move your feet forward more, there will be more intense stretch for the hamstrings, and then you can stay, or if you don't mind, you can keep going and stop when you have enough. And we will come up the same way. Press the hands into the floor, straighten your back first, and then you can bend the knees a little more, lean on them, and straighten up, unfolding. Next one is our side stretch. Lean on one of your thighs and first reach forward and across, and the stretch will be the area between your rib and hip. Then you can lean on the chair and make it mostly the side stretch right here on the ribs, outside of the shoulder, and then little extra for the shoulder, just moving the arm back. And if you keep your elbows straight and bend your wrist, you will feel your palm and fingers stretching. And then let's go to the other side. Leaning a little bit forward. That's one stretch. And we can lean, have your back against the chair. That's a side stretch. Make sure the shoulder is down, by the way, not up by the ear. And then extra stretch for shoulder and arm. Watch, straight elbow, bend wrist. You will feel your palm and probably even your fingers. And that was side bending off. So we go forward and back, side to side. Let's explore rotation. We will come into a good upright posture and start rotating. First, just turn your rib cage, and if your hips will turn with them, let them move a little bit. And look over your shoulder. And then if you don't need your hand for support and you can maintain nice and upright posture, add a shoulder stretch with the same thing for the wrist where you're bending it. And have your palm facing the ceiling so your shoulder is externally rotated. And then let's go to the other side. Same thing, turn the rib cage, not too much. You shouldn't start feeling your lower back. That's why if your hips want to move, then let them do that. And let's do one more time. On the second time, you might find it's a little easier to turn. And then we can go to the other side. Exhale, rotate. Good. And come back to here. Only a few more things that we need to do from the chair. Let's stretch the back of the hips. First, we need to decide if we want to do it at all. So if you had a posterior hip surgery or any other hip problem that prevents you from sitting cross-legged and leaning forward, you can skip the stretch. If there is no problem with the hip, just sitting cross-legged, let's tilt the hips forward. So it may be a very small movement, but we need to make sure that it's your hips moving forward and we're not doing it rounding the back. And the stretch should be in the back of the hip. Should be no knee, no growing discomfort. If this is good, we can play a little bit with the angle of the thigh. We can very gently push it down. Again, it could be a quarter of an inch and it could make a big difference. Again, it should be in the back of the hip, but it migrates around that area. You might feel a little bit of the hamstrings too. And then the other way, lifting the knee and still pushing the hips forward. And then we can release it and do it on the other side if you choose to do it. So we need to sit upright, create a little bit of a hip hinge, so we're tilting the hips forward and make sure we feel right things in the right place. Back of the hip, maybe a little bit on the outside of the thigh, especially on top of it. That's possible. And if you want to slightly change the angle, you can very gently push the knee down as you're leaning forward. And then we can do the opposite move. Knee goes up a little bit and we're still leaning forward with straight back. And you'll notice that slightly changes where you feel that stretch, but it's still back of the hip. And we can straighten up. So that was the chair part of it. Next part, we do standing on our feet. So if you don't want to do it, you're done. If you don't mind standing, for now, we don't really need the chair. We will just practice standing upright. Of course, you can have it around. I'm going to move it so you can see everything that I'm doing. So let's practice good posture while standing. Let's have our feet under the hips. And see, if you want to turn them a little bit out, not excessively, but slightly angled, that's fine. That's acceptable. Let's look down at our toes and make them move. So we can grab the floor with the toes and then spread them out a couple of times. Especially spreading them out might feel really difficult as our feet are often sitting tight shoes, so toes might just forget how to spread out. So try your best. Next thing to do, plant your big toe and pinky toe and your heel into the floor first, and then try to shift your weight without lifting your toes or heels. Just a small movement, just to see what it feels like to put more weight on your toes and balls of your feet, and then put more weight on your heels. We want to find a place where the food, the whole tripod of your food is loaded evenly. Big toe, pinky, and the heel. And now we can try really carefully. Can we do this? If we can, that means we're standing upright. If we were leaning forward too much, this motion will not happen. So we just found how to load the feet evenly. Let's go up. Knees. Let's keep them a little bit bent, not too much, just a little. We'll try our pelvic tilts now, standing. Tuck the tailbone, stick the tailbone out. So this is the, if it was a real bucket, water flowing to the back posterior tilt, water flowing to the front anterior tilt. And let's observe again what muscles do we use to create this or that tilt. So to tilt the pelvis forward and still lower back, you will feel front of your hips too. Now with this one, you'll also feel your glutes, butt muscles, and hamstrings, and still the stomach. So now we will be looking again for balance between these muscle groups to find neutral, where your belt line is closest to horizontal that you can make it. Usually it's a little bit tilted forward. So let's find that position where you have still a bit of tightness in the glutes and the butt muscles, yet your stomach also is tight and your back still has a little arch. So we don't want either muscle group to take over. A little bit of arch. If you touch the muscles that support the lower back, they should be there, but they shouldn't be too hard. If they're very hard, like frog, it means you may be overdoing the arch a little bit. So that's our pelvis, vertical. Now we just need shoulder over the hip, hip over the ankle. We can open the shoulders and put the head back on the shoulders. That's it. That's our mountain standing upright. Shouldn't feel very difficult. We just aligned our body with gravity. It's just vertical. See if we can still do this. We're not shifting weight forward. Now let's try a couple of forward bends as a warm-up. Big breath, and then we start moving hips back. So now the weight shifts toward the heels, and you'll feel some pulling in your hamstrings as you do that. Now hands on the knees, which is soft, and you can now relax the back and see how low you want to go. You can stop at any moment if you feel that's enough. If you want to keep moving and it feels okay, you will feel noticeable more stretching your hamstrings. You can always bend your knees more, and if you manage to reach the floor, you can shift the weight a little bit forward. And then to come up, we'll shift the weight toward the heels, and let's put hands on the knees and roll it just like we did in the chair. So we keep the back bent, straighten the hips, and once the hips are vertical, we can uncoil the back, and we just did a roll up. And you can use your knees to support. Let's do it again, arms up, and if you want to move your hips a little bit forward and chest a little bit up, so it's a very slight back bend, and then drive your hips back, open the arms, soft knees, this is your pelvic tilt, start feeling your hamstrings eventually, that's where you can relax the back, hold the hands down, always feel free to hold and lean onto your legs, and listen to your back, and if you want to put your hands down and look at your knees breathing, if that's okay. It can cause sinus pressure, however, and come out the same way. Hands on the knees, keep the back relaxed. As you're straightening the hips in one step vertical, we roll up the rest, and we came back to upright. Let's do a few more. So this time, if little back bend feels good, keep your glutes tight, hips move a little bit forward, chest moves up, and then we go into a forward bend. First we fold, and then you can relax the back. Always, remember, you can always bend knees more if there is any discomfort. Now let's come up in a little different way. Let's look forward, put the hands on the knees, and straighten the back. And feel free to help pressing onto your knees, but now we are unfolding rather than unrolling. We straighten the back, and then we move the hips, and we're back to vertical. Let's just do one more time. Back bend or no back bend if you don't like it. Hip hinge, forward bend, and then relaxing the back. Now this is spinal flexion, sliding the hands. You can go all the way down, but you don't have to. And up the same way. Hands to the knees, and let's move forward. And that straightens the back. And then you can help it or not. hips, we're back to vertical. That was the warm-up. Let's do a couple of rotations. Let's do a couple of side bends as part of the warm-up. Let's go back to our mountain pose. And first, it will be small side bend, just moving the rib cage. So hips are staying over the feet, rib goes to the hip. You can tilt your head slightly and just experience a mild stretch in your side and lean on that hip so it's not unsupported. And then go to the other side. So this hand on hip, hips are not going anywhere. Rib cage is moving to the side. Your head can tilt a little bit, and when you feel a nice stretch, hold it there. Don't do anything extreme. And go back to vertical. On the next one, we'll make it a little bigger. So first the ribs, and then you can shift your hips so they're no longer over your feet, and that allows more movement. And you can also tilt the hips slightly. If you bend the knee, you can drop that side of the pelvis. So your pelvis is also tilted to the side. Again, make sure everything feels good. And we'll take it to the other side. Start with hips over the ankles, side bending, shifting, and maybe even a little tilt, which allows you more stretch inside. And then we can come out of this, and let's rotate a couple of times. Now that was stretching. This one will be working, the chair pose. Let's do it like this. Start with a mountain with toes forward, shoulders back. We are upright, taking the arms up, and keep them where they are. Don't let them drop forward. Start with your soft knees, move your hips back, and tilt them forward. Not much. So it's not like this way. Slightly angled. And then start bending your knees and dropping the hips. And hold this. You don't have to go too low, it's first one, but the whole body is working. Your feet are pressing into the floor. Your chest is up. Your back is straight and stiff, and you're pushing the arms back because gravity pulls everything this way, and we're working against it. Now let's press the floor down, straighten up, and lower the arms. Very good. That was one. We have another one to do. We can loosen up a little. And then again, standing upright, arms up, start with your knees soft, tilt the hips forward, don't go too low, something like this, and then start bending the knees. And if you want to explore, you can keep bending the knees. At some point, you'll feel your calves, and you won't be able to go any lower. And I'll just sit there, feeling everything is working, the whole body. And then to come up, press the feet into the floor, unfold, and take the arms down. Good. We're done with the chair pose. Rotate a couple of times. Few more squats. This time we pretend we need to pick up something from the floor. First, we want to have our feet a little wider. Toes will be slightly out, which reminds us that we need to keep the knees from collapsing as we go down. Our imaginary object, we want it right under, very close to the feet, so we don't have to reach forward for it. We'll start with what looks just like mountain, only a little wider, and then we'll keep the arms in front of us as we go down. Soft knees, and we will tilt the hips forward to the point where you start feeling your hamstrings. Your shoulders still way above the hip. And then try to bend the knees. Keep in mind that you have to push them outside so they don't collapse. Even listen to what it feels like. You can stop at any moment here. If you have range of motion available to you, you hold the way down until you touch the floor. Coming up, same thing. Straight back, pressing the floor down, straightening knees and hips, and we're back to vertical. We have just picked up our imaginary object, box or whatever it is. Let's do another one. So the wider the feet, the less distance you have to travel toward the floor, but it becomes more stretchy. So see just how wide you want your feet. Chest up, we'll start bending from the hips. Knees have to be soft to allow your hips to tilt forward, and then you start bending the knees. So you're not dropping your head and shoulders down, you're dropping your hips down because you're bending your knees and you're sinking. No knee discomfort. You don't take it anywhere where it feels uncomfortable in the joints. To come up, you keep your chest up, press the floor down and slightly apart to keep your knees out and straighten everything at the same time. That's it. We're done with this. Shake it out and rotate. And we did a lot of movements, leaning forward, opening the back side of the body, stretching hips and hamstrings. Now let's get busy with stretching front of the hips. Let me just angle my mat a little. Let's start everything on the right side today. We'll start with our feet forward, standing close to the chair. It will be just a high lunge. Right foot goes back and it stays a little bit apart from the left foot. The heel is up. We can move the chair a little closer and straighten up. Weight is on both legs. We can start bending the back knee and sinking, making sure front knee is behind the toes and pointed forward. And as you sink, we should start feeling the stretch in the front of the hip. So your step should be long enough. If you step too short, the hip will be closed. But then again, not too far back. And then see if we can straighten up, straighten the hips the best you can so they're not tilted forward here. And then if you don't need the chair, one arm up and maybe two arms up. And let's relax the shoulders down and just notice how far can we take the arms without leaning back. And just look straight forward. And that was our first lunge. We will take the arms down, put them on the chair like this wide, and step back in our first downward dog. We can shift the weight away from the chair, soften the knees, relax the back, and press down. Now we can walk the feet to the chair and do the other side. Start same position, feet forward, stepping back long enough to open the hip. Back foot is turned forward. Let's try and straighten the hips. Just doing this, making them vertical, should put some stretch in the front of the left hip this time. And we can sink down, bending both knees, and when the stretch is noticeable, you can check if it feels safe to lift first one arm, two arms. Keep an eye on the front knee, make sure it doesn't go in, make sure you can see your toes there. So we're not stressing out the joint, and try to push the arms back a little bit. And then we can bend the elbows, push the arms back a little bit more, but with elbows bent, and try to move the arms up and down a couple of times without shrugging the shoulders. And then we can put hands on the knees, step back. And same thing. All the weight is on the legs. Chair just supports the weight of the arms, and we can keep the back in a relaxed position. Don't need to arch it or tighten it, and keep the knees soft. Let's walk the feet back to the chair. Let's do a variation of warrior one. So we'll start with the right foot again, and it's still going to be turned forward. But this time, we will not bend the back knee. Let's straighten the hips, which could be a little bit harder than first time now that the knee is back there. And we will bend just the front knee. You might have to adjust this back foot. And it's a really big stretch in the front of the hip. Again, if you're comfortable, lift the arms up. And if you start feeling too much of the lower back, it's probably because your hips are tilted forward a little bit. Then move your rib cage also a little bit forward. And let's see if we gain a little bit of movement in the shoulders. Let's repeat the trick. Bend the elbows, push them back, and try a couple of moves while pushing the elbows back and not shrugging the shoulders. And meanwhile, it starts to get tiring. Let's rest in our downward dog again. Very good. We can walk the feet forward, and now let's do everything on the other side, which is left side. Feet forward. Keep them apart as you step back. Straighten up and keep the back knee straight. Let's try and straighten the hips. They won't straighten entirely because leg is back and knee straight. And then we'll bend the front knee. And when you feel a good stretch in the front of that left hip, take the arms up. And if your lower back is uncomfortable, take your ribs a little more forward. And see, we should have gained a few inches here. And then we can rest in a downward dog again. So please exhale. Okay, and let's just do one more. Warrior one, this time the classic one with your foot angled. Right foot goes back, being apart from the left foot. We will turn it, and that means your hips are turning too, right? So we'll still keep this knee straight. Let's turn the hips toward the chair. You might have to adjust your back foot. This time, heel is down, knees straight. This knee, again, bends. And when you feel a stretch in the front of your left hip, take the arms up. And once again, if you start feeling your lower back too much, move it a little bit forward. Opening front of the left hip, the stem stretch feels a little different because the thigh is rotated to the right. Back to, let's do this, straight on this front knee. Now both knees are straight. You can have your hands on the chair, tilt the hips forward. If you don't need the chair, stretch the arms to the back, picking your shoulders back so they're not hanging forward. In reaching back through your fingertips, you can slowly come forward. Since your knee is straight here, you'll feel your hamstrings pretty soon. So that's when you stop. Back, this time is straight. Chest is up. Back is working against the gravity. And if you want to make it harder, arms come forward, but don't let your back sink down, following the gravity. So this is a back strengthening exercise. And now we can step back to the downward dog. And now you can relax the back. Doesn't need to be straight anymore. Give it a break. Let's walk the feet to the chair. And now, of course, we need to do left side. So left foot is going back. We will turn it, plant the heel, keep the knee straight. And let's turn the hips toward the chair. You might have to move that back foot a little bit. Try to straighten the hips, bend the front knee, keep it behind the toes, and take the arms up and see what you feel. Front of your left hip, bigger stretch because it's rotated to the left. And if it comes with lower back tightness, it's because maybe you're a little bit too upright, so you can take your ribs a little forward. Because remember, pelvis probably won't be exactly vertical here. It's a long step to the back, so the hips will be tilted forward. So that means that leaning back too much might feel uncomfortable in the lower back. So now let's straighten front knee, take the arms down, and you can always do it with your hands on chair, tilting the hips forward. So back stays stiff. You will start feeling your hamstrings here. If you don't need the chair, again, you can roll the shoulders back, prevent them from going down where the gravity pulls them, and reach to the back wall, not up because that might tilt your shoulders down. Reach to the back. And if you want again to make it harder, you can take your arms forward and keep moving them using whatever motion you have available without lifting your ribcage up. So it's just motion from the shoulders. Back is straight and stiff. And then we can put hands on the chair. All right. And let's do a couple of moves while we're here. One knee bent, one knee straight. Push the hip to the side. Feel it down the hamstrings. Let's do it on the other side. And then we can walk the feet. And let's move to warrior two. I will turn my mat again a little bit so you can see better. Before we do the warrior two, we will do the starfish and side lunges. How about that? So I will put my chair to the right side. And let's start with nice and wide position of your feet with toes forward, like so. See how wide you want to be. Let's straighten our hips. So we don't want to tilt them forward with your back will be arched like this. We want to straighten them and be very much flat. So this is our starfish. It should feel nice, like it's open in your front. And it's not very hard to do. So just not too much arching and reaching back. So now you can always use the chair. We will keep the left knee straight. We will take the hips back and bend the right knee a little bit. And then straighten out. And now we'll keep the right knee straight, move the hips back and bend the left knee and keep it pointed forward. I will turn so you can see what's happening at my hips. So left knee straight, right knee bends. And you're angling forward and then you're going all the way up. Now let's do it on this side. Hips are going back, this knee bends. It looks just like a squat if you're looking from the side. And now I will turn like this again so you can see everything what's happening. So this knee straight, this knee bends, and we're angling forward. And you can use the chair or not, and just see how far you want to go. Press and forward is straightening up again. And now hips are going back. We're bending the knee. Knee should be pointed, same way your foot is pointed forward, and you will feel the stretch on this side. And then we go all the way back to vertical. Let's just do one more to each side, and you'll feel a lot of work on this leg, all the way up to straight. And go this way. And straighten out. All right. And now to warrior two. So this foot stays turned forward, this foot turns out. We need to align this heel with that foot. Hips are still here. And let's bend just the right knee and make sure it's pointed forward instead of going in. So we have to engage the glutes to keep this knee from going in. And then it arms out, arms horizontal, spine is vertical here, and just see where do you want to be, a little higher, a little lower, maybe a little wider. It's a big hip opener, but you have to keep your glutes tight, otherwise this might happen. Let's revolve it, revert it, leaning on this leg. It's a spinal side bend, so you're actually bending to the side. Try not to lean back. And then we will straighten up. And now let's keep this knee bent. Hi, Katie. Tilt the hips to the side. So your spine is still straight, but we just tilted the hips to the side, and it's now a side angle. And it's up to you how much of that you might like. Just keep an eye on the sleeve so it doesn't go in. If you want to bend it, then sink down. So this leg stays in line with the upper body. It's this knee which can be less bent or more bent. And then we can straighten it up, and we can get our legs together, shake everything out, and go to the other side. So we will start again with feet wide, starfish. We can repeat our side lunges if you feel like it. So this knee bends, hips are going back, but this knee stays straight. And we start with a small one and go all the way up. Feel free to use your chair, feel free to lean on the knee. So it's the hip hinge and knee bending at the same time. If you don't need the chair, and make sure the knee is forward and foot is forward, and this knee is forward and this foot is forward. All the way up to vertical. Let's go one more time each way. Big stretch this inner thigh. This leg does all the work. And now this leg will be doing the work, and this will experience mostly the stretch. The whole pushing is done on this side. Very good. And now to actual warrior two. So now we turn the left foot to the left. This heel should be in line with this foot. We need to make sure hips are open. Bending the knee, making sure it's not going in. So glutes have to be engaged. Arms out horizontal. We move to the left. Keeping an eye on that left knee. And just see where they want to be. A little higher, lower. Again, knee should still stay behind the toes. So if you want to go lower, you might also have to go wider. Reverse. So now we're actually bending the spine. Feeling a nice side stretch. And now we will straighten up. And now keep this knee bent and just tilt your hips a little bit. So now the spine, it's angled, but there is no bending going on. And see where you want to be. Here, if you want to bend even more. And once again, this leg is in line with the rest of your body. And this is our side angle. And then we can press up, walk the feet together. Let's face the chair, take it to another downward dog before we proceed to warrior three. Let's raise them. And then we can move hips side to side. Shift them. And now from the downward dog, let's step your right foot halfway to the chair so it's not too close. Keep this knee a little bit bent, and we want the back to be stiff. Shift the weight to this leg, and let's tilt the hips forward. Really, you don't have to go horizontal. Whatever is the angle, you will feel your hamstrings eventually. If you want to stretch this leg back, make sure your hips are even for now. Heel reaches to the back, toes to the floor, and if it's your left leg, you want to take maybe your right arm forward if you feel safe, if not, both hands on chair. If you feel good about this, both arms forward. Keeping the chest up, and you can be grabbing the mat with the toes right now. Now let's do a little bit of a turn. Grab the chair and move your hips and your shoulders together to the left, making sure that your right knee is still pointed forward. Two hands on chair, maybe left hand on hip, maybe left arm up. We just turned our warrior to the left. And notice your spine is still straight, it's angled, but try not to hike the shoulder because it can put a lot of unpleasant pressure on this side of your lower back. Now let's turn to the chair, hips and shoulders are moving together, and see if you can move them a little bit more and start feeling the stretch on the outside of your right hip. Now we turned our warrior to the right. Two hands on chair, arm up. You can be more vertical, you can be more horizontal. And again, if you're lifting your chest up too much and start feeling this, drop the rib cage a little. And then we can face the chair and walk back into the downward dog. Relax the lower back and do a couple of hip moves here. So that was right foot. Now let's step the left foot forwards. Keep the left knee a little bit bent. Step back. First we want to straighten up. Then we tip the hips forward. Push the heel to the back. Foot is turned toward the floor. And for now, hips are even. So it's your right leg. If you want to take the left arm forward or two arms forward and grab the floor with your toes. And this is our warrior three. Back is stiff. Now let's play with that. Grab the chair and we can turn hips and shoulders to the right. Again, it can be more vertical, more horizontal. The knee should be pointed forward. Make sure it doesn't collapse in. If you don't need the chair, arm up. And if you feel a little bit too much through this area, maybe it's because your shoulder is up and you end up actually side bending the spine. Good. And now let's rotate it to the left. So shoulders and hips moving together. We twist from the hip joint mostly. And then see if you want to be a little more vertical, a bit more horizontal. And maybe open the arm. And once again, if you feel your lower back on the left, maybe you're twisted too much, or maybe your shoulders are up too much. And then we can face the chair and just walk right back into a downward dog. Exhale. And do all sorts of hip moves here. And then we can walk the feet to vertical. Roll the shoulders back. One more mountain. And this finishes our standing part. Big thumbs up. Exhale. And we have a third part, which is done from the mat. So if you're not interested in going down on the mat, you could be down. If you'd like to do that, we do not need our chairs. I'm going to take out of that view. And to get down on the mat, we will use the same move we did for the warm-up, the forward bend. So we'll be standing here with all the mat behind us. Shoulders are back. We'll start with this. And if you want a little back bend, and then we have to keep the knees soft, fold from the hips. And now we definitely want to bend the knees a lot because we're actually trying to get the hands on the mat. And start walking the feet. And you can get on all fours, or you can keep walking the feet into the downward dog, driving your hips up and back, moving your upper body, your rib cage forward until you feel a good stretch in your shoulders, and reaching down through the heels. Reaching down, you don't necessarily need to touch, so don't get upset if you can't touch your heels to the mat, but you can do one foot at a time and walk it. And then it will be a little easier to actually touch the mat with your heels. But then again, if you can't touch the mat, no big deal. As long as you feel stretching your calves and your hamstrings. And then we can all get on all fours. And let's rest a little bit in the child stretch. See if you can point your toes, if that can happen, and move your hips back. And then relax the upper body forward. If this is too much and your hips are not going back that far, you'll just have to put a little more weight on your arms, doing something like this. Either way, it relaxes the back. And now let's take it to all fours position where your palms are under the shoulders and elbows are slightly bent, and your knees are under the hips and they're a little bit apart. And we'll do pelvic tilts again. So let's steer with the pelvis first. Tuck it under, and this will round the back. And your shoulders might come up a little bit, and then lift the tailbone up, and this will arch the back, and lift the chest, and you can draw your shoulders back. So now we're on all fours. There's a little bit more involved compared to what it was in the chair. So now we're also using our arms and shoulders. And we can also synchronize it with breathing. You can exhale on your cat back when you're scooping your tailbone under and everything rounds. And you can hold it for a couple of breaths or go right into the cow, inhaling, driving the shoulders away from the ears and opening the chest. And your neck is also part of it. You look down, you can even look at your knees or at your belly again. And here you're looking forward. And we will make this movement again smaller and smaller, trying to look for something that is in between. We will still have to keep the stomach tight enough, but also lower back should have a little bit of an arch. So we're looking for balance between abdominals and back muscles, where the back is straight, but stomach still is braced. And from here, we take the shoulders back, check again that elbows a little bit bent. See if you can take one of your knees up from the floor and first move it a little bit forward, and let's level the hips. Make sure this hip is not being tight. And then see if you want to press this leg to the back, keeping it horizontal, much like we did in the Warrior 3, only now it's really horizontal. Keeping the glutes tight to keep this leg in the air, you'll feel your abdominals tight. And if this is not too much, this is optional. And make sure this elbow stays a little bent. Take the opposite arm forward, put your thumb up to the ceiling, and try to balance the bird dog. And now we can take everything down, have a breath, and try the other side. So make your back neutral, not too rounded, not too arched. Bring one of your knees a little bit forward, level the hips, press the heel to the back, making sure your foot is turned toward the floor. You'll feel your glutes tightening, you'll feel your stomach tightening. And then if you want to take your opposite arm forward, again, rotate it out so your thumb is facing the ceiling. And again, make sure that your weight-bearing elbow is a little bit bent. Looking down at your mat so your neck is comfortable, let's not drop the hip. And that's the bird dog on the other side. Have a little breath, and let's do it one more time to each side. Check the neutral back. Leg only or leg and opposite arm. Taking the shoulder back on your weight-bearing shoulder. Keeping the elbow a little bit bent. Make Make sure you breathe in too, and then go to that side. Have a breath in the middle. Should feel actually a little bit easier on the second time you're doing it. Excellent, and that was the bird dog. Let's take the hips back and rest in the child stretch again. And let's change our position from being on all fours. Let's get on the side and bring the legs forward. And let's do a couple of things to open the chest and the hips. Roll the shoulders back, keep the elbows bent, and put your palms on the floor. Find the angle that works for your wrists. Don't turn them out all the way like this, because this might hyperextend your elbow. Something between forward and out. Shoulders are back, chest is up, and let's move knees and hips side to side. And this does loosen up the hips and midsection, but also when your knees turn left, you'll feel your right shoulder stretching in the front. Just see how far do you want to go and make sure your shoulders are not being overstretched. The whole time you're keeping those shoulders back and down. And if you want more movement at the hip, knees could be a little bit wider, and then the top knee can go all the way down to the floor. You can keep doing these. If you want to try tabletop, it might put pressure on your wrists and shoulders, so if they are cranky today, you might want to skip the tabletop and keep doing rotations. If you want the tabletop, again, shoulders are back, elbows should be a little bit bent, feet forward and apart, press the feet into the floor and see if you can drive your hips toward the ceiling. If it bothers your shoulders and wrists, again, no need to go through it. You can just do a few more rotations. And then we can bring the hips down. Our shoulders need a little bit tight. Let's do one more thing here. Move the hips back and stick your tail a little bit out so pelvis is tilted forward. Knees are bent and let them drop, and your feet are pretty far away from the groin. And then we can relax the shoulders, put the hands on your legs, and now without pulling yourself down, you can just relax your body forward. So the gravity will take you wherever your body can go, and you will notice that you're stretching outside of the thighs, hips a little bit in, definitely lower back. Again, there is no need to pull forcefully down where you might not be ready to go. Just land the gravity. You can drop your head and relax the back. Now we can straighten up. And the safest way of getting down on our backs without putting any strain on the back is to first go on the side. So let's do it the right way to begin. Down on the side, and then you can roll, and then we're on the back. We just have a few more things to do. The bridge, feet a bit forward, apart from each other, and probably hip width, knees hip width apart. Let's do this. Let's take the elbows out and press them into the floor. And then we'll start tightening the glutes, and let's peel the tailbone first from the floor, and then keep on moving up. So first we create a tension in the glutes, the butt muscles, and then we're driving the hips up. And as we're doing this, let's press the elbows into the floor. That opens the chest and gives your back muscles something to do. And this is the bridge. And as you're holding the bridge, you should feel that your glutes, your butt muscles are getting tired first, not your back. You should really not feel much your lower back at all. But you might notice the front of your hips opens up. And keep that tension in your upper back by pressing elbows into the floor. And then we can bring down first the upper back, lower back, and then finally the hips. And we can pull knees to the chest and hug them. And maybe lift the tailbone off the floor just a little bit if that's okay with you. And you can walk side to side like this. Should feel nice. If you want to, and it's okay with your back, you can roll up like a ball. Hands go under the knees, and you can start rocking. Make sure you know what's behind you before you roll back, and keep your head up so we're not rolling on the neck. Usually it feels good, but if you meant to stand and it hurts your bones, again, no need to do that. And then after a couple of rolls, when you have enough, return to the floor. Just one more thing. This time arms are out, and we will take you to a gentle spinal twist. You can lower your knees to the side, moving the hips with them. And when it's enough, they don't really have to be all the way down. Maybe there's somewhere here. Should give you a nice hip stretch and lower back stretch. Give it a couple of breaths. Notice what it feels like, and then go to the other side and see how does it feel compared to the first one. And if they don't feel the same, you can go back to the first one if that was the tighter one, or stay longer on this side if this is the tighter one. So we just want to spend a little more time on the tighter side. Doesn't mean that we need to push harder and try to stretch it more, rather than just giving it more time, so don't push on it. Okay, we hopefully evened it out, so now we just need to rest. Shavasana, so find the most comfortable way for you to rest. If you want to keep your knees bent, arms out, or knees straight, make sure that doesn't create any tension in your lower back. You can always bend them again. If you feel that your neck is uncomfortable, a little pillow might help, or just putting your hands under your head like this. And just check your body, start with the toes, move them around, make sure everything is relaxed. Ankles, shake the legs gently, knees, hips, especially lower back if you start feeling tightness there. Put something under your knees. Make sure the chest is open, up shoulders. Let them roll all the way back and down and stay away from the ears. Make sure your palms are open. Don't put big fists and don't even know we're doing this. Roll your head side to side a couple of times and find the position in the middle and make sure your face is relaxed. Don't just stay there for a minute, just resting. And when you're ready to start moving again, you can bend the knees, fold into the chest, maybe lift your tailbone a little bit, and then roll first to the side. And maybe spend a little extra time on the side if you want to. And then we'll be coming up back to all fours, maybe another child stretch here. And if you like, another downward dog. And then walk the feet to the hands, keep the knees soft, hands to the feet. And you can come up slowly, leaning on the knees if you need to. Walking it all the way up the vertical. Let's have a nice deep breath. Exhale. Namaste. Thank you very much. And you know what? I forgot to put myself in the speaker mode, so I recorded the whole griddle again. So this video is not going anywhere.